What's going on, guys? Doing a video today on some things I noticed in the video game Jump Force. It's like this crossover fighting game from a bunch of characters from a bunch of different animes put into one fighting game. The game kind of flopped. It's not very good, but that's not even the point of this video. It doesn't even matter. It's just something I noticed while skimming through the cutscenes. I found this stuff a while ago. Like I said, I'm just trying to catch up on a bunch of videos I've been meaning to make for a long time. So this isn't all fresh in my mind. But anyways, it doesn't matter. So in this game, the characters get corrupted by a black cube. They're called Umbra cubes in this game, not black. But Umbra means black. And also Umbra means the darkness from an eclipse. And if you know anything about what I've told you so far, there's multiple symbols for things that overlap that are almost the same thing, like a cube, a black sun, an X, time, 9, things like that. I'm going to do a video on each of those individually at one point or another. I'm actually going to do the X one today also. And so it's called an Umbra cube. So it's like which an Umbra technically means, other than black, it means an eclipse, like the shadow of an eclipse, which is the black sun, which is a solar eclipse, which is a Saturn thing. I'll read the dialogue. Yusuke says, "I see, so I was being controlled by a cube." And when the heroes are under the influence of this cube, they turn into like villains in the game, and you have to like beat them up to bring them back around, talk some sense into them or whatever. So that's something you'll see. Like, this cube has some dark influence over the characters, and it's corrupting them. It's a corrupting force. So it's definitely, we've already have like a negative attachment to it. And like, here's another one. But those feelings are what the black cube used to control me. So I'm not exactly sure what feelings the character was talking about, but I have a suspicion that it's, it's probably like fear and like anger and things like that. So with the cube, there's a lot of levels you can look at it, and like I said, one of them really far down the line is, as the Matrix, and Matrix means womb. It's like in third dimension. A cube is a three-dimensional object. You could think of it as your soul being trapped in the flesh, but you could also think of it as like the eternal being trapped out from the temporal, if that makes sense. So like, you're so in the world that there's no room for the transcendent outside of that. I'm trying to map this out psychologically for you and have it make sense. It's much easier to think about this stuff than it is for me to teach it. But you can think of the Matrix thing. We also say think outside the box, the cube. And it's like a mental trap. It's not just like a prison for your soul, which is one way of thinking about it, which means the same thing across the board. Which is what I'm trying to. Which is why this occult stuff is so tricky to explain to people, because it's like it's applicable across multiple scenarios and multiple contexts, and the words can be different, but ultimately it boils down to the same thing over and over and over again. And I guess what I'm trying to say is, by there's no room for the transcendent, it's like there's no room for like hope or the idea of a possibility that things could be different than the way that they currently are. Which means like you're so in the world, it's basically like, it's almost like giving into despair, which could be one of the feelings, that this character is talking about, what the black cube used to control me, and giving up on the idea that something could be different than the way it is. And if you buy into that, then like, meaning like people can't be different than the way that they are, meaning people can't change, then that only leaves you with the option to control them. And like, for example, in the UN, you'll see the black cube. There's a heavy association with unity symbolism tied into the black cube. Once I do a video on strictly the cube, and one of the associations you'll see is the unity, the consolidation, the trapping, the controlling, the imposition type. I don't know. That's something that's associated with that. I hope that makes some sense to you guys. I'm trying to keep this video like have it not be a half hour long. I created the Umbra's cubes, the black cubes, Umbra's cubes, in order to collect that energy. which is like in the Matrix when Morpheus is giving that speech to Neo and they're in that white room with the TV or whatever. It's like, oh, they want it. It wants to turn humanity into this, and he holds up a battery. And there's a lot of ways you can think about that. One being electricity. I don't know too much about this, but a guy named Santos Bonacci, I don't necessarily agree with him on everything he says, primarily with the Vatican being the top of like the controlling hierarchy on Earth. I would think it's a different group of people, in my opinion, if we're going to even be pointing at people and not like spirits or forces that work through people in a way. Anyways, it doesn't even matter. But he talks about electricity and magnetism, and electricity being the force of evil, if you're going to look at it through through that lens, through a scientific lens, I guess. I can't explain that stuff, but it's just interesting that the battery is electricity, and it also has L in it, ELL, electricity, which L is Elohim, which is Saturn. So you can think of that how you want, you know, being trapped there, siphoning, you know, who knows what level that goes to. Like, other than just people wanting to get money off you, like wanting to control you and get you to do the things that they want you to do so you can... It's kind of like... It probably goes beyond people. There's people who are interested in mind controlling you so that you can help them build the world that they want without you even necessarily knowing it. But there's also probably forces inside of people in other dimensions that feed on like fear and things like that for energy. It's possible, and I think that's why, you know, when you turn on the news, think about it, like, it's probably beyond ratings and money. It's something else. And you know, the average news cycle is an absolute horror show, and they every other month they kick off some other major thing to like get your anxieties going up. So Prometheus created the Umbra cubes in order to collect that energy. Okay, here's another thing. Even though we were able to stop Prometheus's plan to merge the different worlds. So that's another thing. I'll probably do another video on that. You'll see bad guys talking about merging the worlds of life and death, and it's usually associated with a black sun going around, which we have the cube here. We don't have a black sun, but it's an Umbra cube, which is an eclipse. So I'll do a video on that. I have probably at least 10 examples of people losing their mind, and not in real life, in fiction. Like in Beyond Two Souls, it's another game. This guy loses his wife and kid, and he wants them back so badly that he's willing to open up whatever separates us from the world of the living and the world of the dead in order to bring them back, in order to be with them again. So you could say that, you know, his intentions were pure, but what he ultimately does, and the Large Hadron Collider thing that they use in that game is called the Black Sun. But yeah, like I'm saying, he wants his family back, so you kind of like empathize with him a little bit or whatever. But I'm just pointing that out, okay? I don't have... Like, I'll have to make a separate video for it, and I don't even personally understand what the hell that means entirely. But that is a pattern. There's a bad guy, and he wants to merge the different dimensions. And like I was saying earlier, like, there's forces or spirits or beings or entities that exist in other worlds, other dimensions, and they can't properly manifest themselves on this plane, in this dimension, without your consent, without you giving yourself over to them. Like, a spirit of anger can't express itself, to put it very simply, can't express itself unless you let the spirit of anger take over and then you act on your anger and do something violent or scream or hurt someone's feelings, things like that. You know, that would be an example, potentially, of worlds merging. In my opinion, you could think of it as just like a neurological, chemical reaction in a person's brain, but I've heard even some scientists talk about thoughts and emotions existing in a kind of counter space who shall rule over this new world. I will not have you interfere. So, you know, again, you have that phrase we've heard so often, the new world. Okay, this is the main reason I'm making this video, is these pictures here coming up. Interacting with either the real world or the jump worlds was forbidden. All we could do was observe him from this rift. So, in this game, Jump World is the world of, like, the anime, like, where these fictional characters exist. And then there's the real world where humanity is, like, real human beings, where we are. Okay? So there's this guy, Prometheus, We can't interfere with the real or jump worlds. All we can do is watch. For a long time, I did nothing but observe humans in all their foolishness. Okay. To convey the events of the jump world to the real world as stories. This is my... Okay, he's basically saying humans needed to be guided. They were being foolish, so we create the... So there's the jump world, these stories where we try to convey certain ideas to them through fiction in stories to have them change or, you know, realize certain things, pick up on certain things, which is basically what happened to me forever. I started realizing, okay, if you really pay attention, and you could call them writing tropes in a way, but it goes beyond a trope. Why the oldest writing trope ever is probably God and devil. Why is that around? Oh, it's probably because those things are real in some fashion, like even if you want to conceptualize it at the lowest level of just being personifications of good and bad aspects of ourselves, which it probably goes, I can almost guarantee you it goes beyond that. But, I don't know, scientifically oriented person or secular person would have to acknowledge it on that level as a literary story. And like, we all like to watch movies and read books and things, and like, those stories can impact us, especially if you're paying attention, looking for patterns, and like opening up your heart to be, act like the story's trying to tell you something. Don't just watch it, you know, like pretend that you're a character like kids do, or like pretend that they're talking to you about something that you need to do. I don't know. I hope that makes sense. I do that all the time now, and it makes fiction 10 times better when you're not just watching it like, oh, this has no bearing to my personality or real life at all. Anyways, to convey the events of the jump world to the real world as stories, thus was our lot in life to indirectly influence those who lived in the real world. So again, which is my problem with so many fandoms, just so many groups of fans when it comes to like really anything. Pick a movie, pick an anime, pick a book, and people really very rarely ever talk about the substance of the story and its themes. Very rarely. It's usually... I watch anime and stuff, so like, for movies it would probably be like, oh, look how cute this actor or actress is. Here's them on Jimmy Kimmel doing a funny joke, haha, whatever. And like, they'll pretty much ignore all the writing in the movie. It goes over like pretty much everyone's head 99% of the time. I'm not saying it always has to be a philosophy discussion every time you partake in a show. You can sit back and relax and just enjoy, but really to like not pick up on this stuff is insane. I don't know how people don't see it. It's ridiculous. You know, you go on like Instagram, for example, that's the only account that I have, and you look at, for example, a Dragon Ball Z page, and it's just like fight scenes, or a Naruto page, it's just fight scenes. You know how deep that show Naruto is? That show will tell you a lot, man. Seriously, it'll teach you a lot about life. If you really, you know, humble yourself and like pay attention and get past like certain words like ninja and stuff. Like, it's just, to not pick up on that stuff is a crime. You're doing it a disservice, and I don't know. I hope you, like, that's where this whole page, my whole YouTube even started from. That's why my Instagram name's A Reluctant Hero, to base it off the whole hero's journey thing. I started to realize that stories have archetypes. Fictional stories have overlaps with psychology, with religion, with the occult, with yourself, and I started talking about it. That's really all this ever was. Thus was our lot in life, to indirectly influence those who lived in the real world. I saw them agonize over idiotic concerns, go astray, make mistakes, no matter how we tried. It was all for naught. So, you know, again, like I was just saying, nobody ever picks up on it. You can release these stories over and over again. People are gonna, talk about nothing, basically, and not integrate the message at all. And it's really like, to me, it's like a slap in the face to the writers and stuff. Like, I would be a little upset if I put my heart and soul, blood, sweat, and tears into a piece of writing and, like, all anyone did was talk about, like, how cute a character was or something. That would, I mean, I don't know, I'm kind of being an asshole, but that's how I feel. I could no longer bear it, thus I decided to guide you all directly. Okay, so that's an important picture. This is an important sentence. Prometheus, he's saying the stories and the education and, like, the intellectual and like emotional outreach didn't work to get you to change through the stories. Like, you didn't pick up on it, you weren't receptive, it didn't fucking work. So all I had left was force, which is his plot in the game. I think he wants to invade the human world and, like, you know, guide you directly just means set up, you know, just means force. That's all that means. Is like, I'm going to set up a authoritarian government, or I'm God, basically. Things like that. Which I think he even says, I'm God. Once I have combined all the worlds into one, so there's that merging of worlds thing again, I shall lead you as your one true God. So that's, once again, very common thing for a bad guy to think. And when you really map it out psychologically, like I said, there's no room for the transcendent. He is the transcendent. He gave up on possibility, on hope. He's saying, I'm God. Not thy will be done, my will be done, that sort of thing. And which is Satanism. It's Satanism. If I had to describe Satanism in a single sentence or in a single phrase, it would be, I am God. Or the belief that the self is God. It's not true. You're not God. You're gonna die. You have to be... I've already talked about this a million times. I'm not gonna, spend another 20 minutes talking about it. You guys probably understand. But in my view, you have to be subordinate to an ideal higher than yourself. You can't be the highest ideal. Meaning, and one basic example I'll give you is, okay, like, let's take, some people will say God is love, which I posted a video called Holly Weird, episode 1, where Bill Maher was talking about a kid dating a grown adult, and he's like, oh, we can't define love, we can't do that, and you know what, it's not entirely objective, I'll give him that, but it's not entirely subjective either, which is my point. You have to be beneath the ideal or the standard for what love is. You can't be the standard itself. You have to fucking serve the standard. You have to serve God. Meaning, like, if you say you love someone, you have to be held accountable in certain ways. There's certain things you say and don't say, and there's certain things you do and don't do. If you actually want those words, I love you, to be true. Same with the word friend. And if that standard didn't exist at all, then love has no meaning. It can just be, oh, I can say I love you and steal from you and beat you and do all these other things. And that's not true. It's not how it works. So if you say you love someone, there's certain things, there's certain requirements. That's all really. The main point I wanted to talk about in this video is how the villain was ranting about how we tried putting out fiction for everyone to, like, learn this lesson. Didn't work, which is something I'm fascinated in, is looking for truth in fiction. So that's why I made this video. And then there's some occult cube stuff, but that's less significant to me than this second portion of the video. Anyways, thanks for watching, guys.